here, and I must say, when I was listening to Corinne, there are so many parallels with water. I mean, the parallels go right down one after the other, and your current experimentation and so on just reminds me so much of the hand pumps testing we were doing in the 80s during the first water decade. And that's exactly what we were doing, and we were getting all those partners involved and all the people on the ground and getting the women to do the maintenance of the hand pumps and so on. But in any case, that was then, and you're working on your cook stoves now, and it's all about women's health and women's economic empowerment. As you know, women has spiritual and symbolic value in all religions and traditions. This is when we launched the International Water for Life Decade, and we had the blessing of the waters by all the major religions and by 5 different Native American groups. And each one has water at the center of their tradition. You can imagine, you know that instinctively. Water is the center of life. But we've lost our respect for water. Why has that happened? You see this all over. There's been a terrible destruction of valuable indigenous systems, and especially pure sources of water. And it's been undermining women's efforts to restore and preserve their water sources. We've been misusing and mishandling our waterways through human, animal, and toxic wastes. It's really an attack on our water resources. And why? Short-term economic gains at the expense of the long-term health of our ecosystems. We've got to change the way we do things. And of course, it results in reduced availability of good, clean water. So the policy framework for dealing with water in the UN, I was very much a part of it. I used to work for the Sustainable Development Division at the UN, and I was in charge of the water agenda at the Commission on Sustainable Development and the World Summit in Johannesburg. It's part of Goal 7 of the Millennium Development Goals, Goal 7C, to reduce by half the proportion of people who lack access to sustainable water and sanitation by the year 2015. And of course that links extremely closely with the gender, the Goal 3, to empower women, and what's the other half of it? But anyway, because once women get access to water, they can do so many other things with their lives. They can get an education, their girls can go to school, and it's the same thing about walking and spending 4 hours a day fetching water. I mean, I don't know, they have water on one arm and
wood on the other.
Wood on the other, yeah. So there are a lot of linkages, and once women get involved in the water committees and water user groups, then that empowers them in other ways, leadership. We're a little bit past the middle of the International Water for Life Decade, 2005 to 2015. As you probably know, we're doing fine on the water goals, just because of China and India. But Africa is lagging far behind, especially on sanitation. Africa is very far behind, so is South Asia. So they're not going to meet their Millennium Development Goals on sanitation. Even China and India aren't. Then we have UN Water, similar to the energy. I think UN Water came a little bit before UN Energy, but I'm not sure. 26 agencies. Yeah, I think UN Water came a little bit earlier. But we had an intersecretary group on water way back at the end of the 70s. 26 agencies, and now we've got all kinds of partners. So UN Water's expanded way beyond the UN system as well. The human right to water and sanitation was adopted by the General Assembly on the 28th of July in 2010. This was a big accomplishment for a lot of people. They had been working for that for years. And then we have the World Water Forums every 3 years, and I will be going to Marseille on Thursday. And we have a big pre-conference women's leadership in water and sanitation going on the 10th and the 11th before the Water Forum starts on Monday. I've been working on a specific project for the forum called Water and Green Growth. And it's hard to get gender into it, but I'm doing my best. And then they have water weeks in Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Arab states. But what are we talking about when we're talking about access to good, clean drinking water? We're not talking about a tap in every house, and we're not talking about a toilet, a flush toilet in the bathroom. WHO definition of access is 20 liters or 5 gallons per person per day within 1 kilometer walking distance from the household. So I mean, we've got almost, 900 million people that don't have that much access. So they're more than 1 kilometer walking distance and less than 5 gallons per person per day. Access to improved sanitation, what does that mean? Again, we're not talking about flush toilets. We're talking about improved pit latrines and communal sanitation complexes. And these communal sanitation complexes have been quite successful in places like India particularly. They're taking the place of, home toilets and sanitation. But it's really important to make sure that those facilities are oriented towards women's needs, because in many cases they're the wrong, the wrong technology and things like that. So again, on the what George was talking about, the additional investment, they estimate that to meet the water and sanitation Millennium Development Goals would only take about $30 billion a year. Again, these are old estimates, and it's probably more now, but that's a month in Iraq, right? I mean, it's not that much. And that's for all of the countries that are trying to meet the Millennium Development Goals. But this, I love this statistic because this was, a lot of research went into that last one. Investment in water supply and sanitation yields benefits of 3 to 34 times the investment. Now that is according to the country, and it depends on, it's mostly in terms of public health expenditures saved and productivity increases, so more productivity in the workplace. Rural women and access to water. Women head up 1/3 of the world's households and produce something like 60 to 80% of the food in most developing countries. Now, that's as opposed to cash crops, which the men are producing, and usually the men have pretty decent irrigation systems, well, in certain countries, and the women don't. But the women are producing 60 to 80% of the food in most developing countries, and FAO has recently come out with its SOFA, State of Food and Agriculture, and it was on gender this year, and a lot of it had to do with how much countries' GDP would increase if women got access to inputs for agriculture. Women devote a great amount of time and energy to fetching water. A lot of times girls cannot go to school because they're going out and carrying the water, and women don't have time for other things. Women care about the systems working, but they have little choice about the services they receive. I mean, I've heard so many stories. The community development ministry comes in and asks the head man, "Where do you want the well?" And the head man says, "Here," and of course it's on his property. And so guess what? Women are still going down to the river where the water is very polluted. So you've got to get women involved in the consultations because they're the ones that care about the systems working properly. And as I'm sure you all know, women have little access to water for irrigation and water rights. And in many cases, water rights are tied to land rights. And land rights are in the name of their husband or the husband's family. And if the husband dies or something else happens, we got to rush now. I didn't realize I was that bad. Potential contributions of women, there are many. There are innumerable contributions, but these have all been documented in certain countries. Construction of latrines, get women involved as masons. Fundraising and collecting fees. They always say women are more reliable on being treasurers of the water user group. Water minders, the Lesotho in South Africa, locating and protecting the best quality water. Yes, ask the women. Otherwise, you're going to put the thing in the wrong place. They know where the best quality water is. Preventive maintenance and repairs, and leadership. But what we need is capacity building, and it's needed to increase the number of women as managers and technicians. Projects designed with the full participation of women and men are more sustainable. This is a project I visited in Chile, and the head of the project, the head of the water user group there is a woman, and many of her team are. These are women leaders for WASH. I won't go into detail, but this was in 2005, and we had so many. We had like 40 ministers of water or environment who were women, and you can see the spectrum. I mean, this was a great group. Maria Mutagamba and Kaketla, and South Africa, Uganda, Lesotho, Colombia. So many, and so many. It was, they were great, and they were all working on affirmative action programs in water. Empowerment of women, rural women related to access to water. The 4 types of empowerment. Sociocultural empowerment, improvement of self-image, recognition as farmers. Show those women. I mean, people don't recognize that women are farmers. I worked on an FAO project for the last year, and they don't recognize that women are farmers. It's unbelievable. Political empowerment, leadership positions in local government and water user groups. Economic empowerment, access to water for irrigation and small enterprises. Yes, it's really important, and the women are using that income for their children and their families. And physical empowerment. Water is heavy. It really bears down, especially if you're pregnant. And physical empowerment. Accessible water supply and sanitation reduces the physical burden. I just put these on the screen because there are a lot of networks and partnerships that can really help. Rotary is a key one. The WASRAG, Water and Sanitation Rotary Action Group, they're doing great work. Sustainable Sanitation Alliance, a lot of foundations. The Gates Foundation has a specific program for sanitation, innovative solutions in sanitation. So that's a great one. And of course, Clinton Global Initiative has a lot in water. And NGOs such as WaterAid. I think WaterAid is a great organization. They get a percentage from everybody's water bill. This is in the UK, of course, to go for their programs in developing countries. And so I think that's a great way to do it. Gender and Water Alliance, I've been a member of that since 2000. It was created at the World Water Forum. I'm still part of it. The way forward, soft path. Soft path means, okay, we're not going to do the hardware. All we're going to do is the support to the hardware. Recognition of women and as farmers and their right to water for irrigation. Small supplemental irrigation. We're not talking about 3 meters for rice. We're talking about supplementary irrigation for 2 weeks, so that the crops don't die when it gets dry. Small scale, low cost, community-based solutions. Build local capacity, obviously, mobilize local sources of funding, and raise awareness through advocacy campaigns. WASH in Schools is a very important one. It's led by UNICEF and the Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council. It's a very good program, and involve women role models like those women ministers that we saw in the picture. Thank you very much. This is in Bangladesh, and another project I visited last year. Wonderful.